welcome to the Sugar Plum Robin Knitting Podcast. My name is Ray Plummer and I'm a knitter and a poet and a mum and I live in Edinburgh in Scotland. You're very welcome. It's been a couple of weeks since my last podcast and it is lovely to be back. So I hope that you have your knitting with you or your crochet or you're just having a relax with a cup of tea and let's talk about some knitting. So before I start, I'll say that if I mention any particular patterns or anything like that, all the links will be down in the description box underneath this video, so you should be able to find them there if you just scroll down or click the little arrow. You can find me on Instagram, where I'm also Sugar Plum Robin. You can find me on Twitter, where I'm Smachel, and I'm also Smachel on Ravelry. My Twitter is mostly my writing and poetry stuff, but I do post knitting pictures on there occasionally. So as I mentioned, I'm a writer, I'm a poet, and I always start and end these podcast episodes with a poem. Today I was thinking about which poems to choose, and I was thinking about how it's just been the Easter holidays here where the children have been off school. I have two children. One is an 11-year-old called Audrey and she is home educated, and one is a 6-year-old called Robin and he goes to school. And so Robin's been off school for a couple of weeks and I've been taking him out on lots of adventures, and his favourite place to go this past holiday has been to the beach, to the seaside. So we've been catching the train up from Edinburgh to a lovely little town called North Berwick. I'm going to mention that again later because they do have a yarn shop. But North Berwick is a really beautiful, kind of picturesque, idyllic seaside town, and we've been spending lots of time sitting on the beach, digging, making sandcastles, flying kites, and looking at all the rock pools and finding lots of cool creatures in the rock pools, which has been really fun. And it's made me think about the sea and sea creatures, so I've been thinking about that and I wanted to choose a couple of sea-themed poems. So I've chosen a sea-themed poem to start and a sea-themed poem to end this podcast episode, and they're both by a poet called Tennyson. This is a very old, stained, dog-eared book that came to me probably many more than secondhand. And you'll have heard of Tennyson probably. I suppose if you're in the UK, you've probably heard of Tennyson. But Alfred Tennyson was a really famous poet. He lived in kind of Victorian times and wrote lots of really well-known poems. So these poems are a bit sort of older in style than ones that I've read before, but I really love Tennyson's poems, and so I thought I'd think of some sea-themed Tennyson poems. So, sorry, my chair is a bit crinkly today. So I'll start with one called The Mermaid. Who would be a mermaid fair, singing alone, combing her hair, under the sea in a golden curl, with a comb of pearl on a throne? I would be a mermaid fair. I would sing to myself the whole of the day. With a comb of pearl I would comb my hair. And still as I combed I would sing and say, who is it loves me? Who loves not me? I would comb my hair till my ringlets would fall lower down, from under my starry sea-bud crown, lower down and around, and I should look like a fountain of gold, springing alone with a shrill inner sound over the throne in the midst of the hall, till that great sea snake under the sea, from his coiled sleeps in the central deeps, would slowly trail himself sevenfold round the hall where I sat, and look in at the gate with his large calm eyes for the love of me. And all the mermen under the sea would feel their immortality die in their hearts for the love of me. That's a mermaid sea-themed poem. One of the lovely things we did on our trip, on our trips to the beach, was to go out on a boat to, there's a couple of small islands, really just big rocks in the sea. One of them is called the Bass Rock and one of them is called Craiglee, and they have unbelievable quantities of seabirds on them. So there's puffins and guillemots and razorbills and just everything that you can imagine. And on the Bass-Rock in particular, thousands and thousands of gannets. If I can, maybe I'll have put a clip of some of that in for you to look at. It's spectacular. We also saw seals and dolphins and all sorts. And whenever I see seals, I think of selkies, which is a Scottish piece of folklore. And that makes me think of mermaids. So moving on to the knitting. So we'll start with what I'm wearing. So today I'm wearing my Whitmore sweater, my Whitmore pullover by Amy Loudon or Loudon, I'm never sure, which is a lovely top-down, lace-yoked, kind of slightly oversized baggy pullover. And I love this pullover a lot. I wasn't sure how much I would wear it because it's so pale. And I have messy small children and 3 guinea pigs, and I thought, no, this is going to be destroyed very quickly. But actually it's so soft and so lovely, and I think it looks so beautiful, but it's very comfortable that I end up wearing it all the time. And so far, touch wood, it's going okay. It's not got too badly destroyed or stained or anything. So this pullover was knit out of the Ordine or Odine, I'm not exactly sure how you say it, but from Knit Crate, Shine Sport in the colourway Sprout. So if you look carefully, there's these brown and green speckles in the yarn on this creamish base. And I held that double with some drops, I think it's kid silk or silk mohair, I don't know what they call it. That's the post. But it's a wool that is silk and mohair, and it's very nice. So it's just, you know, kind of a standard but very reasonably priced lace weight silk mohair. So I held those double to make this. It's got this lovely halo to it. Yeah, so I'm wearing this. And related to this, because this is my episode where I've just passed over 500 subscribers, which is lovely. 500 people who maybe hopefully watch this video. I thought, you know, as is traditional, I would do a little giveaway. And I was wondering what I could give away, and I had the perfect idea. So when I was making this pullover, I thought I wouldn't have enough yarn. I thought I was going to run out. As it turns out, I did have enough yarn. But while I was panicking that I wouldn't have enough, I messaged another person on Ravelry who had some in her stash, and I said, would you sell me a couple of skeins so that I can complete my pullover? And she said yes, but she was delayed sending it out as she wasn't very well, and she's okay now. But while she was delayed sending that out, I managed to finish the pullover with what I had. So I realized I didn't need those 2 skeins, but she'd already sent them. And here they are in this bag of the Shine Sport in the colour Sprout, which is a lovely wool. It's 80% superwash merino, 20% tencel. It's sport weight, 350 yards per 100 grams. So there's 2 skeins of it here, and I thought these would make a nice little thing to give away. So this is 2 skeins, so that's about 700 yards of this Shine Sport, which might be nice for somebody. So if you want to enter, all you need to do is just drop a comment on this video, and maybe you could tell me what you're making right now. I always love to hear what people are making. It's always really inspiring to me, even if I don't want to make the exact same thing as them, or even if they're making something in a completely different craft that I don't do, like crochet. I don't do much crochet, but it's still really inspiring to me to see what people are making and to get excited about it. So maybe you could drop me a comment saying what you're making right now, and I'll draw a winner for these 2 skeins next time, which will probably be in about 2 weeks from posting this video. So yeah, If you want to enter, just drop me a little comment. So that's my giveaway. Okay, so I'm going through, I've got my little list in my notebook here. I'm going through everything. Finished objects. I have a couple of finished objects, which is really nice. We all love a finished object. We like a finished thing. And the first thing, I've been working on this. I was working really hard to get this done. My daughter has just turned 11. It was her birthday about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. And she had a birthday party and I was doing a test knit. And I was doing a test knit for Esti Yuango, who is her name is like Ilarad. I will put it on the screen if I can, definitely in the description box below, so you can go and check her out. She designs really lovely patterns. She's a fairly new designer. She designs primarily for children, but she's got some kind of mum and me kind of patterns where she's got like the women's version as well as the child's version of the same garment, which is always really fun and cute. So Esti has really beautiful designs for children, and one of the things I love about her designs, they're all quite simple, and I think her focus is on designing garments that kids would actually want to wear, things that they would choose to wear rather than maybe what their parents would choose for them. And it works really well. Her designs are always really loved by kids that I make things for, and I make a lot of designs for kids. So I saw this test come up and it was unicorn themed, and I instantly knew I had to make it for my daughter who loves unicorns. So I applied to test knit and I was accepted. I knit the 12-year-old size. My daughter's just turned 11, but she's very tall. And it's a pullover and it has a unicorn on it. And the background colour was like, I think purple or pink or sparkly or something in the original sample that Esti had knit. But my daughter likes black. She likes to wear black clothes. She's definitely in that preteen, slightly goth phase. So I got some charcoal double knitting yarn and knit her this unicorn jumper. So here is the unicorn. And the pullover itself, it's big and baggy, nice and kind of, I wouldn't even call it boxy. It's maybe not quite wide enough to be boxy, but it's loose and comfortable, which again is exactly what my daughter likes, exactly what kids this age, in my experience, tend to go for. It is a really fun design. It is knit in pieces and seamed. It is, the unicorn's done with intarsia. I don't know if you can see, the horn itself is knit with like a sparkly purple, very pale purple sparkly yarn. It's very visible in person, but I don't think it will show up on the camera. It's got like a little bit of stellene in it and it's very shiny and sparkly. So this yarn is Drops Charisma. This colour is, I think it's just called charcoal. It's their, or maybe it's anthracite. It's their one that's like not as black as the true black. You can see it's kind of charcoaly. And then I just got some, I think I already had some white, and I got some blue and pink. And this purple sparkly was a different yarn that I just had in my stash, but I just used a tiny bit of it. I really like knitting colourwork projects. I think they look great. I think they're fun to make. However, I much prefer stranded colourwork to intarsia. I'm not a huge fan of intarsia. I find it slow and it can be really uneven. This one wasn't too uneven and it's blocked out okay. It's still not perfect, but nothing ever is. It's fine. It's handmade. The collar and the cuffs and the hem are just in a 1x1 rib. It's got that very classic pullover look with just this little fun detail of the unicorn on it. It fits her beautifully. It's actually nice and big. It even fits me, although not quite as loosely. It's a really nice project. It was dead easy, dead simple and straightforward. Lots and lots of fairly mindless stockinette and good TV knitting, and a really lovely final product which my daughter really liked, and it suits her, it fits her. And I was so delighted. She was really pleased to get it on her birthday. I'll try and pop in some pictures of her wearing it here as well. So that's my first finished object, a unicorn pullover, a unicorn sweater. So that was a fun pattern. And I don't know if the pattern's out yet. I think it's not quite out yet, but hopefully it will be really soon. So I'll put in a link to Estie's Instagram and her Ravelry, and you can keep an eye out for when that comes out. So my second finished object is a lovely, cute, very vintage, retro kind of styled project for my wee nephew Rory, he's just turned 1 yesterday, so I'm a little bit late with this. I've got to post it off, but hopefully it will arrive in time for his party. And my sister and her family live down in England and I'm up in Scotland. I don't see them super often, especially with the pandemic. I've not seen them super much the last couple of years. I've only been down once to meet little Rory since he was born, but yeah, he's her first baby and he's absolutely gorgeous, and I love to make him things, and in particular for Rory I love to make him little vintagey things. My sister was really close with my nana, my grandma, who sadly has passed away now, and when my nana, when she got too much arthritis in her hands and she couldn't knit anymore, she gave me all of her knitting stuff. And she was like a really inspirational knitter to me when I was younger. Her and my aunt are the ones that taught me to knit, and they're both sadly no longer with us. And I just thought, if my nana had still been around, she loved babies. She had 6 kids of her own and many, many, many grandchildren, great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. And I know she would have knitted things for my sister and for her baby. And so I wanted to use some of the kind of older stuff, the patterns and pattern books, and even some of the yarns or colours or needles that my nana had left to me or given to me, to make some things for my sister's baby. So that's the background behind this and why it's quite so kind of retro. It's from one of my favourite knitting books of all time. I've mentioned it before, I no doubt will again. It is Pat Menchini's Beatrix Potter knitting book. This is probably all backwards to you, but it is full of the most adorable designs and patterns, and it is so beautifully classic. So for this one I knit the Tom Kitten sweater. Beatrix Potter, if you're in another country and you don't know, was a beloved children's author from, I think, Edwardian times, sort of from a while back, in England. She was English, I think, and she wrote lots of stories about little animals. Tom Kitten was a very naughty kitten, and he was very kind of cute and mischievous. So this is Tom Kitten on this little pullover for baby Rory. So I knit it in the the sizing is a bit unusual. I think basically this works out at about 1 to 2 year old size, and it's definitely come out on the bigger side. So this is probably more of a 2-year-old size sweater. But I think that's a good thing, because Rory's birthday being as it is at the very end of April, it means that we're about to go into summer. He won't necessarily get a lot of wear out of this. I think he'll get most of his wear out of this next winter, or maybe even the winter after. So it's good that it's a nice big size. Hopefully it will fit him for a good long time. At the moment they can roll the sleeves up. I do think I followed the pattern, I got gauged, but I do think the sleeves came out quite long. But they can roll it. They can roll the sleeves up, I'm sure. And he'll be okay. So it's probably coming up backwards again for you, but it says Tom Kitten at the bottom. And it's in these lovely retro tabby cat colours. So this jumper has a really unusual construction. It might not look that unusual. Basically, it is knit in pieces from the bottom up. I chose to do this striped ribbing in her pattern. I think she has it. I'll find there's a picture. She just does a plain brown ribbing, but I really liked let's see if I can get it to you without the chart. There there. Can you see it's got just a plain brown ribbing? But I liked the stripy ribbing to match the kind of stripy tabby cat look. So that's what I did for it. It's bottom up in pieces, but the sleeves are knit as part of the top of the body. So you knit up to about here, you increase a little bit at each end, and then you cast on a whole bunch of stitches, and you do that 3 times on each side, so 6 times in total. So you've got the sleeves as just part of the main body, and same on the back. And then when you seam the sleeves, you seam them on the top and the bottom. Does that make sense? And all across the shoulders, and then you pick up for the collar and you pick up for the cuff afterwards. And it's also got a little split at the back with a couple of buttons to make it go over, because this is a really small neckline actually. I imagine the top button will be undone more often than not. Yeah, so it's come out really cute. I'm not sure how much of a fan I am of this construction. I think I knit it, I was like, I'll just follow the pattern, I'll give it a try, why not? It's from this kind of older book. When's the book from? Oh, let me know when it was published. Okay, so this is published in 1987. So this book's from 1987. So it's an older book. So yeah, I don't mind seaming. I quite like seaming. It's quite meditative, and it's quite nice to spend time with your finished pieces of fabric that you've made. I didn't used to like seaming, but then I think we don't ever really like things that we're not very good at, do we? And I think then the key is to practice until you are a bit better at it, and then you'll find it more enjoyable. And that's essentially what I've done through the years. I've just got better at it until it's at the point now where I actually quite enjoy it. So yeah, I think it makes the arms stick out a bit much. I think they're a bit too long and they don't kind of fall quite right. I think it's going to be weird in the underarms. I'm just not completely convinced by it. I think it's going to feel weird, or maybe even look a bit weird, to have an arm in here and have like the bulk of the seam. Obviously I've sewn it as neatly as I can, and there's not too much of a seam, but there is a little bit of seam in there. There always is going to be. You can't have no seam. I'm not sure. I'm not sold on it, but I think it is really cute, and I'm sure it will get worn. I have just literally used some acrylic yarn I had in my stash for this. I think most of it is it'll be King Cole or Stylecraft, bog standard acrylic. I can't remember the colours. I've got a massive stash of it from all of the Christmas stockings I knit, because I knit most of them in acrylic, unless the person specifically asks for wool, because I think especially if it's something that's going to get shoved up in an attic for most of the year, that is so tempting for the moths. So I just make them in acrylic, and then as well, you know, if chocolate gets melted on them or whatever, they can go in the wash. So I have always a huge stash of different colours of acrylic, and they're very useful for baby knits. My sister's not a knitter. She's just gone back to work. She's got a baby. She's got a busy life. I don't want to send her something she's got to hand wash. So here is the little pullover, the little Tom kitten for my wee nephew. Oh, I hope she likes it. I hope my sister likes it. Obviously, like, Rory's too young. He's not going to really care as long as it doesn't feel bad. And this is nice soft, and I've given it a good wash with some nice soft baby detergent, so it should be nice and soft for him and nice and warm. Oh, it's got a little Tom kitten on it. I just think it looks so cute. Again, intarsia, so much intarsia, and this one had really weird instructions. It said to use stranding within the intarsia, so you don't have too many different little balls and strands, which is fair enough. It did kind of work. The nice thing about it being in acrylic meant that when I finished with it, I could just I just chucked it on a gentle wash in my washing machine, and by the time it came out, everything was really nice and even, because all the stitches had been pulled around every which way in the washing machine. So it does look, I think, quite even, quite nice. Yeah, I'm happy with the way it looks. I'm not happy with the construction, but I'm not mad about it. It's okay. So that's my little next finished object. Okay, let's move on to works in progress. And I have a few works in progress. I always have lots of works in progress, but I've been trying really hard. I mean, I'm always trying really hard to do this, but I've been trying really, well, let's say more successfully lately, to finish up works in progress as much as I can before starting new ones. Limited progress, limited success, but some success. I've finished some things. I'm clearing through things, and most importantly, with some of my older projects, I have decided that I'm obviously not working on them for a reason. The pattern's not working, the yarn's not working, something about it isn't clicking for me. So I've discarded some of my old works in progress from them. But what I've been working on lately, let me see, here in this little bag. So as I said, I've been going off on the train to the beach with Robin, and I've needed some very easy, straightforward, mindless knitting that I can do on public transport or while sat on a beach towel on the beach, watching Robin, make sure it doesn't fall in the sea too much. And so that's been socks for me. So I've been working on these socks. Which you'll have seen before if you've been watching for a while. I've been working on these for like a year. I'm not a sock knitter, and I love knitted socks, but I do not like knitting them. Something about the small circumference, and they're just round and round and round and round and more round. That being said, these are lovely socks. Look at these colours. This is a self-striping yarn. Now it was in my stash and it had lost the ball band. And when I first started knitting these, I posted saying, oh, what are these socks? What is this yarn? Because I would love to get more of it. I really love these really wide stripes. And I got lots of nice comments, and somebody did hit on the right one, and I found which yarn it was, and I've completely forgotten again. But if you go back in my videos to that one, one of the ones in the comments has got the right one. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the description. I'll try. So this is a sock that I'm putting in is it like a forethought heel? Is that what it's called? Where I've put in a bit of waste yarn here, so that I can knit a heel. And I'm not doing the heel yet because I want to knit both socks like tubes, and then I will put in the heels at the same time. So this one I had already finished and shown you. So I've been working on the next one while sat on the beach. So here it is. Had a bit of laddering, so I've been moving the bits around, but I'm sure that will come out in a good block. I think this yarn is super washed, so I think it can go in the washing machine, but I'll test it very carefully. Yeah, so I've just got to the same point where I've put in the waste yarn for the heel. I'm just a little bit past that, so I've just got to do the foot and then it will be done. This is really nice. I tried to match it up, but as you can see, it didn't quite match up, but it's almost like, basically, it's just the very top bit that is slightly different. Normally I don't really care about stripes and matching things up because I quite like odd socks. I often wear odd socks. I'm wearing odd socks today. I'm wearing one dark blue, one light blue. So I normally don't really mind about matching them, but for this one, because the stripes are so fun, I thought it would be nice to have them as matching as I could get them without stressing myself out too much. I was trying to knit these on buses and trains and stuff. So yeah, those are my socks. I've been working on them. Slowish progress because I tend to only knit on these when I'm out with the kids, and when I'm out with the kids it's slow to knit anything because I'm concentrating on what Robin is doing, and what he's doing is usually completely mad and so I don't get too much knitting time, but that's this one. Pop these in here. Ooh. Pop them away. Right, next work in progress. Okay, so the next one I can't show you because it's a secret test knit, and I think that's really fun and exciting in a cool kind of James Bond, I could tell you but I'll have to kill you kind of way. It feels exciting. It's about as exciting as knitting gets. I'm knitting on a secret thing which I can't tell anyone about or show anyone, or certainly not like online. But I was wondering about what I could talk to you about, because it'll be a while before I'm able to show it. It's a while before the pattern's due to be released. So I thought I can tell you that it's a garment and it is knit in worsted weight yarn, and I can tell you a little bit about how it's going. It's quite an intricate pattern. I'm knitting it for myself. It is going slowly, and I have had to rip out and start again at least. Well, I've had to rip out and start again once, and I've had to take back, like frog back quite a bit and redo once as well. And that has been down to gauge issues. Now, when you're doing a test knit for somebody, so if maybe you don't even know, so a test knit is where a designer has designed a pattern, and before they release it, they ask people to knit it as like a test. It's usually 1 or 2 people in each size, just to make really, really sure that the pattern works and there's no errors and everything's okay. And these test knitters give feedback, and the pattern is adjusted as needs be, and then it can be published. And also a nice thing for the designer is that then those people can publish pictures of their projects, and then people who might be thinking of buying the pattern can see examples of it knit up on a whole different range of people and bodies and styles and shapes, and that's really helpful. I really certainly find it helpful when I'm trying to decide whether or not a particular pattern will suit me or not. I can look and see, well, this person, in this body shape, which is more like mine, and it really suits them, so yeah, I will go for this pattern. So it's a really nice thing to do, and it's fun for the test knitter because you get the pattern for free and you get to have a bit of a kind of sneak peek at a design. So and I like to do it. It's a bit of fun. I'm not trying not to do too many this year, but I wanted to do this one. It was good fun. But the issue with it is, if I was knitting this project and I just bought the pattern, then I would just do a gauge swatch, work out what, whether my gauge matched the pattern or not. If I was happy with the swatch, if I was happy with what that looked like, I would just then work out kind of what size or what alterations I had to do to the pattern in order to make it work for my size with my gauge, rather than trying to force my gauge to fit the pattern gauge when it maybe didn't really want to or wasn't really working for me. So when you're test knitting, you can't really do that, certainly not without checking and making sure with the designer that it's okay, because you want to give as close a match to the instructions as possible, so you can give feedback to the designer on whether that worked. Like if I knit at the right gauge for the pattern and follow all the instructions, does it come out to the right size? Does it come out to the size that the designer hopes it will? Does it look right? So it's important to follow the exact gauge. However, this design is a little unusual in that it's knit with a worsted weight yarn, but it's knit at a very tight gauge. It's a gauge that maybe is more, I would sort of consider more common for fingering weight yarn. Like if I'm knitting socks, I knit it probably about this gauge. So it's a very tight gauge for worsted weight yarn. And I've been having gauge problems and find my gauge has just been growing, and then I've had to redo it again and try and go down needle sizes more than in my swatch, because I found that on the bigger area, or as I was going through it more and more, my gauge was getting looser. And actually I've been knitting, parts of it in like 2.5 millimeter needles, and this is for a worsted weight yarn. And the effects of this, there's 2 main effects. One is that it hurts my hands to knit it, because I'm trying to force this yarn into this really tight gauge and using these small needles, and it hurts. So I can't do too much of it at once without my hands hurting. And the second thing is, it means I've got loads of stitches on the needle. It's almost like knitting a sport or fingering weight garment, because I've got as many stitches around on the needle as I would normally have on a fingering weight garment of this type. Which means that then it's very slow, because I'm having to do so many hundreds of stitches per round. It's also quite an intricate pattern with lots going on. And so it all combined means it's just going really slowly. The designer has extended the test deadline because of this. Lots of people were finding they had gauge issues and they were going slowly. So all that being said, knitting it at that gauge, there is a reason for it. It's made this absolutely beautiful, very dense fabric that is incredibly even, and you just get the feeling it will last forever. Like, this sweater will still look good, when I'm passing down to my grandchildren. It is going to be sturdy, and it's also going to be the kind of thing that will be very warm and windproof, which is exactly what you'd want from a garment of this type. So I do see why. Also, the fabric just looks beautiful. It looks amazing. And when like I've been knitting it around other people, like knitting it with family around, and they've all said, oh, wow, that looks really amazing. It looks very intricate. And so it's nice, and the effect is good. It's just necessarily going a bit slower, and I'm going to have to speed it up a little bit because I'm not quite halfway through and I only have a few more weeks to go before it's due to be finished. So I'm going to have to really step it up a bit. But I've been struggling with my hands so much with knitting this and my wrists, and I don't want to get to the point where I can't knit, because then my brain will fall out of my ears. I just knit to keep myself sane. And so if I get to the point where my hands are so bad that I have to take a break from knitting for an extended, like, a few weeks or even months, I'm going to be really, really frustrated. So I'm trying to be sensible about it, work on it, but, not break myself over it. So that was a lot of chat for something that I couldn't really show you, but hopefully soon I will be able to show it to you. It's a really nice kind of non-superwash yarn. I don't know if I'd call it rustic exactly, because it doesn't feel at all scratchy or prickly, but it doesn't feel very soft. It's not drapey, it's very sturdy, and part of that, as well as the tight gauge, is like a stiff fabric, but I think it will soften up on blocking as well. Yeah, it's an interesting project. I always consider myself more of a product than a process knitter, but I'm rethinking that lately, and I've touched on that in previous episodes, because I think there are things that I enjoy the process of knitting a lot, and are things that I like less. For example, the sock knitting. I really like having knitted socks, but I'm less interested in knitting vanilla socks. I like wearing vanilla socks. They're my favourite ones to wear, but I'm less interested in knitting them. And maybe the same is true for this kind of project, where I'm going to really enjoy the finished product, but the experience of knitting it wasn't as relaxing or as fun as my other projects have been. So I'll report back anyway, I'll let you know. So my next project, I've only done a little bit of work on this, but I've not shown it to you in a while, so I thought I'd show it to you. I'm not in a super duper rush to finish this one, because I just want to get it done maybe by the end of this summer. So this is a pattern of my own design for a little friend of ours called Finn. And this pattern, I'm calling it Far Away because it's inspired by the Faraway Tree, which are children's books by Enid Blyton, another older children's writer. I love children's authors. And actually, in some exciting non-knitting news, which maybe is not interesting to anyone, but my first children's picture book is coming out possibly later this year, possibly start of next year. They've just found the illustrator for it, and I've written the words, and I'm very, very excited. And when I am able to announce it properly and tell you who's publishing it, I definitely will, even though you might not be interested because it's not knitting. But yes, here is my Faraway design. So it's got a little bit of everything in it. It's got all of these, so it's not blocked, so the bottom is standing up a little bit. It's got this moss stitch split hem. Then it's got these little mushrooms, these little, I don't know whether they're trees or leaves, different kids have told me they look like different things. Some squirrels, some little gnomes, acorns, cherries, and apples. And the point of that, of all these different nuts and fruits and different kinds of leaves and things, is that in the Faraway Tree, in the Faraway Tree books, the Faraway Tree is this massive tree in the middle. It's the biggest tree in the whole wood, and of this wood called the Enchanted Wood. And these three children who live next to the Enchanted Wood discover it, and the top is so high it's up in the clouds, and they decide to climb up it. And as they're climbing, they find that, maybe at one point in the tree it's growing apples, and another it's growing cherries, another acorns, another pine cones, all different kinds of things all the way up from all different kinds of trees. And at the top there's this, where the branches finally end up at the top in the clouds, there's a magic land, and the magic land changes every few days. So every time they go up there's a different magic land, and they have different adventures there. And it's a book that I loved as a child, and I love sharing with my children. So as you can see, I've done all the different kinds of things, the little gnomes, little pixies, which they are also in the story, and the squirrel, there's a squirrel who lives in the tree. And then there's all different things. That's the mushrooms, the toadstools at the bottom, and then there's the leaves, and then there's like the acorns, the cherries, the apples. And then up at the top, I'm doing the very top of the tree, and it's a raglan construction, so it's in the round at the bottom, then it splits for the front and the back, and the sleeves will also have this kind of design on, and the top will have the very top of the tree. So this is my faraway design. I've been working on this for over a year. I keep working away at it, and I think it keeps getting pushed to one side. There's something in that, isn't there, about it being my own design and having maybe a bit less confidence in that, and feeling a bit more unsure of it. And so it's taking a really long time as I work bits of it out, and I'm writing it up as I go. Maybe I'll be able to like put different children's sizes in and share it at some point. Hopefully, if I ever get time. I'm always just chronically short on time. But I think it's a cute design. I don't know, what do you think? Do you like it? Do you think people would like to knit it? It's been fun. This is my faraway pullover. I'm knitting it in Drops Charisma in brown, cream, I think this green is called olive, and a red. There we go. I use a lot of Drops Charisma because it's a good one for children's clothes where you want to use wool. I think it's super wash. I think the instructions on the wool band say you can machine wash it on a gentle, like a wool cycle. And it comes in a really wide range of colours, and it's really affordable. So if a child wears it and they wreck it, like, okay, you'd be sad because you put so much time and effort into that, but you wouldn't be like, no, that cost me hundreds of pounds. So that's another thing I'm just chipping away on. Maybe I could commit to having a little bit more of that to show you next time. That would be a nice challenge for myself. And the final thing, so this one, this is a bit of a reactionary project. I've had this in the planned, and the yarn and everything planned for this project for a while, and I cast it on just yesterday, entirely because I was frustrated with the secret test project with the fiddly, the small needles and all the fiddliness and the intricacy, and I was like, no. I need something else to kind of distract myself, something on nice big chunky needles. So I cast on the chunky dahlia, and I've only just done the top. It's top down. I've only just done the collar and the very first few rows. I'm knitting it in this yarn. I don't know if you can see, it's green, but it's got this kind of bluish haze to it. It is very cool. I'm really loving the squishiness of it. So the yarn is this yarn, which I got a couple of years ago online from this Chinese website, which I can't even remember the name of. And if I can find it, I'll put it, but if I can't, I'm sorry. I tried to find it before and I couldn't, but I'll have another look. It says yak wool. There's thing here, it's all in Chinese, with all of like what's actually in it. So I used Google Translate and worked out that it's got 25% yak, 50% wool, and 25% acrylic. So that's the yak wool. And I didn't really know what I was getting when I ordered it. I just saw yak wool and I was like, oh, I'll have some of that. So I ordered, I think, 5 or 6 balls of it. I don't know if that's going to be a sweater quantity or not. I don't even know how much is in a ball. Is it 100 grams? I think is it 50 grams? I don't know. So I'm just I'm going with the flow. Maybe it'll be a short sleeve dahlia. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it's knitting up. It's very soft. It's got this lovely like shiny sheen to it. It's very squishable. There's no itchiness to it at all. I don't know how it will block. That might be interesting to see. I could definitely tell that it's got acrylic in it. I've worked with acrylic a lot. It's got that feel, but it's Also got this quite nice little halo, which I don't know if it's showing up. It's a nice yarn, and it's it doesn't say what size it is, like whether it's bulky or super bulky or whatever, or Aran, but I'm pretty sure it's just a bulky. It's just a little bit thicker than Aran, and I can only say that because I've knit so much stuff with so many different kind of weights of yarn that I can kind of estimate quite well what that feels like. And so far it's knitting up perfectly well. I've not done a gauge swatch because the structure of the chunky dahlia pattern is by, oh, I've forgotten the name. Damn, I'll put it below again. But it's a very well-known pattern, and it's a lovely design. It's knit on 6mm and 7mm needles, so I've done the collar in the 6mm needles. It's got a lace yoke with a pattern of leaves on it, and then the body and sleeves, it's top down, it's fairly loose. I'll try and put a picture on the screen. You can see it, I've just got the top of the leaf design coming in here. I really liked doing the collar. It's a folded over collar, and it's lovely and squishy in this thick yarn. So you do a provisional cast on, and then you knit it, and then you fold it over, and then you knit the stitches together with the live stitches from the provisional cast on to make the folded over collar, which is a lot easier than knitting it and then sewing it down, which is what I've done before for folded over collars. This was a lot easier, so I can definitely recommend that. Yeah, my needles are clinking because they're metal. And it's just so quick because it's on 7mm needles, and I think that's what I needed. Something where I could be knitting it for a couple of hours and actually see progress. So that's been fun. I'm really liking this so far. And I know I shouldn't be knitting it. I should be knitting my test one, which has a deadline. But, you know, my hands want what they want. They want this. So I will probably sort of alternate between the different projects, which is what I tend to do anyway. So that's my last work in progress. I have some kind of sort of acquisitions slash plans and stuff to talk about, so I'll go into that now. But if you're not keen on acquisitions, you definitely don't have to stay, and I will see you next time. I'm going to talk about some of the things I've got and some of the plans I have, and then I'm going to share another poem to finish us off. So, where shall I start? Oh, okay, I'm going to start with some fabric. So I've been learning to sew since the lockdown. I think it was the first year of lockdown. It was the second year of lockdown. The second year of lockdown, I got my sewing machine, and I've been learning to knit, to sew. And one of the things that I've been loving is sewing quilts. I've only done one so far, but I really enjoyed it, and I've been planning for my next one. So I always keep my eye out for fabric. And one of the things I've seen recently is that my local Sainsbury's, which is a supermarket, has got a craft aisle in it now, which is delightful. So they have some, bog standard acrylic yarn. They have lots of knitting needles and stitch holders and stitch markers and row counters and darning needles and all that kind of thing, which is lovely to see and very useful. And they have like fabric scissors and tape measures and fabric markers and all different kinds of pins, and they have lots of stuff for embroidery floss, embroidery hoops. It's just really nice to see a little craft section in like a shop that is walkable distance from me. And one of the things they have are little bundles of fat quarters. Look at that, isn't that cute? And it's 100% cotton, and it was only £7, so it was very affordable little pack of very cute fat quarters. And I think these look so lovely. They look like a country cottage kitchen kind of style. I thought this would make like a nice little patchwork something or other. I'm not sure whether I want to make like a baby quilt with these, or if I maybe want to make some cushion covers. That might be quite nice. Or something. I'm not sure what I'll do with them. But isn't that lovely? So cute. And super affordable, and just around the corner. So that's going to be terrible for my wallet. So that's some little backwards that I got. And then some really nice friends of ours have just moved house, and they've been wanting to move house from their little flat for a really long time, for years and years and years. And things have always got in the way, life's got in the way, jobs and lockdowns and all sorts. And they finally got a house. They bought a house nearby Edinburgh, in a small town right on the shore, so right by the sea. And they love the sea. This whole family loves the sea. And you might remember that I knit the octopus jumper for Errol, the little boy who's in this family, and I also knit him and his little sister octopus hats the other year. And they love anything sea themed and octopusy and anything like that, which is why their house right by the sea is so perfect for them. And I was so happy for them. And my daughter Audrey, she does she does kind of graffiti style art, but she does it on like papers and canvases and things. So she's making a piece of artwork for their new home as like a housewarming gift. And I thought I have to make them something too. So I ordered a couple of charm packs online. If you don't know what a charm pack is, if you're not much of a sewer, a charm pack is a pack of pre-cut squares for quilting that comes in like a variety of different patterns and colours within one kind of theme. So it'll be from a certain company, and they'll have like a different range of fabrics that are all in the same kind of colours and theme. And they'll sell pre-cut squares that you can do quilting with. And so I bought a couple of charm packs that are sea themed. I'll show them to you. I have them in here. I got them from Wool Warehouse, so they're in this little bag. And here they are. So this is from Moda, and the collection is called The Sea and Me. So I got 2 packs. They're both the same though, The Sea and Me. So let's open one and have a look. I can show you. One of the things I love about the charm packs that Moda does is that on the tag it's a ruler. How handy is that? So you can see that it's got a list of all the things, all the different ones. Oh, that will be backwards for you. But it's got a list of all the different materials. So let me just show you some of them because they are so beautiful. So you see this one on the top. It's just got kind of coral and things. No, I don't know if this one will even show up. It's very pale. It's got seashells. Let me see. Oh, this one's got all different kinds of seaweed. I don't know if this is interesting to you or not, but I love this stuff. I cannot get enough. Look at these little sea creatures. Absolutely gorgeous. And this one's even got mermaids. Very in keeping with the theme, with the poem. Mermaids. And then they've got similar stuff in like the different colours. So all the different colours will have the same ones. It's got some other ones here. Look at this. You can see some with octopuses and sea creatures, which I know they'll love. Oh, look at this one. Different sea stars. So yeah, in all the different colours and shades, there's all the different designs and narwhal. In all the different colours. And I'm going to make them a quilt, probably a fairly straightforward quilt, because I'm still learning and I want to just get the basics of quilting down. Aha, here we can see. I want to get the basics of quilting down before I try anything too adventurous. So I'll probably just make a quite standard quilt. Isn't that beautiful? So stunning. And yeah, and make that for them and get it probably quilted and bound and done, and hopefully it won't take me too long and I can get it to them as a nice housewarming gift when we go and see them in their new home. So yeah, that's one of my acquisitions right there. Some more fabric. The next acquisition, so I mentioned this earlier, North Berwick, where we've been going. It's spelled Berwick, like B-E-R-W-I-C-K, but it's pronounced Berwick. So North Berwick has got a lovely, lovely yarn shop called Chandlers, and the lady who runs it She was in there when I went in, and she was so kind to Robin, my little boy, who was with me. And he has special needs. He can be a little bit difficult, but he was so well behaved in this shop, and he loved all the yarn in there. He walked in and he instantly said, "Can we buy something?" This is a boy who doesn't speak much. He doesn't have many words. And I said, "Yes, we can definitely buy something in here." We looked all around, and he was really good, and she was very kind and patient with him. And so I bought a sweater's quantity of wool. It doesn't have a name. She said it was specially made for them. It's Gotland and I think Shetland mix. It's incredibly soft and incredibly beautiful. I've got it here in this bag, and it's in a kind of undyed colour. And I'm obsessed with Gotland yarn lately. I think I've been watching Kia from Kia's Bod talk about Gotland yarn, and I've bought some of the yarn from her web shop, and it's so beautiful. So I got a sweater's quantity of this, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with it yet. I'm enjoying all the possibilities. And it's lovely. I've got one that I've sort of unravelled a bit to look at. You can see it is just beautiful, and it's unbelievably soft, and it smells like heaven. It smells like a sheep. So I love it, love it, love it, love it. Yeah, that's a little something I'm delighted with, and I wanted to mention it. I don't always mention everything that I buy yarn wise, because a lot of it's not super exciting, but that one just felt like I wanted to mention the shop, Chandlers, North Berwick. I don't know if you can order things from them online, but definitely if you're in the area, definitely go and check them out, because I think it's a special shop. You can get wool there that is not just stuff that you can find anywhere. It's really nice, interesting yarn. I think they dye some of their own yarn. It was just a really special place, and the lady was so nice and kind. So shout out to Chandlers. Oh, and the next thing, speaking of Kia, so Kia mentioned a designer on her podcast recently, which is Wenche Roald. I hope I'm saying that at least somewhat right, Wenche Roald, who is a Scandinavian knitwear designer. And as soon as she mentioned it and showed some of the patterns, I was just obsessed. I went and instantly looked for her, and I found that she has a book. Most of her patterns, most of her books are in, I think, Norwegian, but I found one that was in English, and I ordered it online, and it has arrived. Here it is. It's called Norwegian Knitting Designs 90 Years Later, and it comes with, so it's a book of patterns that are inspired by traditional Norwegian designs, specifically Anniken Sibern, again I'm probably saying that wrong, who was a knitting designer who designed this booklet, which is also included with the book. There's like a little envelope in the back, and it's got this thing which has got all these really traditional designs of Norwegian patterning, and then this book has modern designs which Wenche Roald has designed, inspired by those and using those charts, and they are stunning and so much my cup of tea. And they have a really lovely range in this book of designs that are more complicated and would take a long time, like these. Look at those, so beautiful. I mean, I say complicated, it's just 2 colours stranded work with a steek, but that I know that for some people that's straightforward and something they can do, and some people that's not, because colour work isn't their thing, and that would be quite complicated. But some of them are much simpler, things that don't have steeks, that only have a little bit of stranding colour work. So I definitely think, like, look at this one, the Clover Meadow Pullover. It's knit with thicker yarn. It's only got a little bit of colour work. It's got a really straightforward design. There's no steeks. And I think if you're a beginner to colour work or you're not so confident, then this would be a great one to start with and build you up. Lots of people start knitting colour work on really small things like mittens, but I think that's actually more complicated to do than if you're working on a nice big amount of space. And maybe something like this with just a little bit of colour work on a nice wide body of knitting, and it's in the round. I think maybe that would be a good place to start. So I think actually this would be an interesting book to take you all the way through your colourwork journey, from the most simple stuff to really more intricate stranded work. I just think every design in this is stunning, wearable, classic, but with a modern twist. So if you look at these ones, how beautiful and wearable and versatile is that? I'm very impressed, and it's got some lovely patterns for men in as well. It's a very Scandinavian looking man. So it's got a really wide range of designs. See, some of them are just really, really classic. Like this looks so classic. What a fantastic book. I'm loving it, and I can't decide what I want to start with. I absolutely love colourwork, stranded colourwork. And now that I have steeks a few times, I have no fear of steeking. Now look at this, I would wear this. It's on a man, but I would definitely wear that. Look at that lovely design. It's not just got sweaters, it's also got, well, it's got some things for children. This is done with mosaic knitting, which is a very simple technique and looks very effective, I think. It's also got, it's got some lovely dresses. I tell you what, knitted dresses on children are just the very cutest thing. Look at that. Adorable. Absolutely. And it's got some accessories as well, some hats, and it's even got a cowl for a dog. That is too cute for words. I don't think I could get my cat to wear that, but it is very cute. So look, you could have all matching accessories with your family and your dog. That's the dream. So yeah, this book, I don't know if it's Wenche or Wenche Roald, and obviously inspired by Anniken Sibern Bon. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at this pronunciation. So yeah, Norwegian knitting designs 90 years later. Fabulous book. I'm delighted with it. So that's my sort of acquisitions and things that I've gotten and plans and so on. And yeah, I think it's about time to come to an end. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember, just drop a comment. I mean, you can comment with anything that you like, and I'll just enter all the comments basically into the drawer for the yarn, the Shine Sport yarn. It's just my way to say thank you. I mean, if I like won the lottery, I would like buy yarn for you all. We'd have a big yarn party on me. But I can at least give something to someone, and it's just a little way of sending something out to one of you. And I don't know, thank you for being here. This knitting podcast is it's lovely, and it's been actually a bit of a lifeline for me through some difficult times, and it's just such a lovely place where I can come and talk about knitting and have, be in this happy place. So thank you so much. I'm gonna get emotional. I'm gonna stop. Let's poem. Let's read a poem. So this is one of the most famous sea-themed poems by I'm trying to find the here we go, an appropriate square. Here we go. This is an appropriate square. This is one of the most famous sea-themed poems by Tennyson, and It's one of my favourites, one I've known since I was a child. It's quite fun. I'll just take a second to find it. These are lovely paper thin pieces. Of paper. Here we go. And it is called The Kraken. The Kraken by Tennyson. Below the thunders of the upper deep, far, far beneath in the abysmal sea, his ancient, dreamless, uninvaded sleep, the Kraken sleepeth. Faintest sunlights flee above his shadowy sides. Above him swell huge sponges of millennial growth and height, and far away into the sickly light, from many a wondrous grot and secret cell unnumbered and enormous polypi, winnow with giant arms the slumbering green. There hath he lain for ages, and will lie, battening upon huge sea worms in his sleep, until the latter fire shall heat the deep. The once by man and angels to be seen, in roaring he shall rise, and on the surface die. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful few weeks, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.